sink leaks are probably the most damaging, frustrating plumbing issues that you can have in your home. So in today's video, we're gonna go deeper and get to the bottom of those kitchen sink leaks. If you stay to the end of this video, I'm gonna show you a trick that my dad taught me back in 1985 that I still use today to stop those kitchen sink leaks. So let's get right to it. If you're new to my channel, please, I invite you to hit that subscribe button, and it will mean a lot if you leave your comments, especially if this video helped you solve your kitchen sink leak. So I went ahead and went on YouTube to figure out if there's any great content that gives you the inside of the best practices to find these leaks. Well, my research came to a great master plumber out of Texas, Roger Wakefield. Now, he does a great job with illustrating some of the great steps to take. So what I love about Roger is that he does start from the top of the sink and he works his way down.
You can fix yourself. So today, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you the things that you can look for under your sink and above to see if maybe you've got problems. Right here around the base of the faucet, you want to make sure you look, are you seeing any rust? Are you seeing anything loose, any gaps? What it is I'm talking about. When you pull this up, this is what you see from below. There's a nut that goes here and a nut that goes here to actually tighten this down to make sure that lavatory faucet is secure to your sink. Normally, if the base plate is on here and the plumber's put putty around it, or caulked it, or whatever it is the manufacturer recommends, you normally won't have a problem. But over the course of the years, rough handling it, moving it around, pushing on it, shoving a pot up against it, things like that could loosen it up. The place that water may be coming out on top where it could go down low is on your spout. And a lot of these spouts, you can loosen the nut on top. Now this one's very decorative, so you want to be very careful with it. But when you pull it out, you see you've got O-rings and you've got a securing ring. The securing ring is going to measure something that you may want to check if you are getting water out here. If you are, you may want to replace the O-rings and use any heat-proof grease on here, which is available at the plumbing supply. That way it lubricates that O-ring so that when you stick it down in there, it seals it off real well. And wiggle around, but you do want this one here, you do want it to be able to turn. Underneath here, we're going to start.
All right, so as you can see, he does a great job with explaining where that spout could be leaking or the base of the faucet. But Roger failed to give you really some other potential areas that cause a lot of water damage from the top leaking down. So what I wanted to do is take a moment and take you to an actual standard modernized sink area and give you those tips. So I'll meet you there right now. All right, guys, so here we are at a more modern, traditional faucet that I feel most homeowners go out and buy. You know, these pull-out spray faucets are very, very popular, but they do have a tendency to leak right here. And what happens is when you turn the water on and you're just using your sink, normally what's happening is that leak is traveling back and dumping that water underneath the sink. So that's something you definitely want to test. And the way to do that is simply just push the spout down, then turn your water on. If you don't have a leak, then you're fine and you've ruled that out. If you do have a leak, more than likely, that's the cause. So one of the things that Roger missed is the top of the countertop. You know, you don't just sometimes have a faucet, you've got a soap dispenser, you've got a water filtration system, you've got a garbage disposal air switch, and especially if you're a homeowner that does a lot of cooking, you're using this sink. And what happens, guys, is that as you're running water, water is landing on the top of the counter. And what's happening over a long period of time, that starts to seep in and causes what I call slow water migration. Those are leaks that are hard to find. So how do you find these? You grab yourself a very bright flashlight And then what you want to do is take yourself a rag or a paper towel, get a cup, and you just want to splash on the top and figure out which area on the top is actually leaking down. It may take a couple of tries, but this is a great way. Sometimes I even take the handheld spray and kind of just put a little bit of water on the top to get that water to activate so I know where it's coming from. All right, this one, I'm gonna bring you in a little closer to give you another tip that water could be leaking down in the kitchen. All right, so here we are up and close at the kitchen sink. And a lot of times you're dealing with undermount sinks, which is sinks that are mounted underneath the countertop. And what you want to look for is the seal between the countertop and the sink. And oftentimes what we do find is a little bit of a breach or a bad sealant job between. So as you're running water, folks, what happens is water is splashing inside of this area and then rolling over, causing water damage into the sink. So you make sure that if you do have that issue, what you want to do is use a strong caulking that is mold free. But what I recommend is when you do go to seal this, you want to peel this out and make sure that it's completely dry. You can grab yourself a hair dryer, put some heat all inside of that opening before you apply the caulking. That's a great way to get a good, nice seal. All right, well, we're now ready to go under the sink. All right, guys, so now that we're down below, there's several most common areas that you really need to look for that causes water leaks. Now, one of them is going to be these type of connections right here. Your P-trap, all of the joints. What happens is when you turn the garbage disposal on, you get a lot of vibration. So what happens over time, these end up getting loose and they vibrate and end up water leaking from those areas there. The other one is going to be where the garbage disposal is. Right where this connection, there is almost like a fiber washer. That gets worn out along with the putty seal, and that ends up vibrating loose and you end up getting water seeping down. So the best way to check for a leak is to just turn your water on first. See if there's anything visible leaking just with the faucet turning on. If you don't see anything leaking while you have the faucet on, then what I encourage you to do is fill the sink up a little bit and put a little bit more hydrostatic pressure to these waste pipes. So you're simply gonna just fill the sink up, then allow that water to gush through. At that point, you will be able to determine and pinpoint where that leak is coming from. So again, what I want you to be mindful of is this area here is very vulnerable, and then the connections here. Now, the other leaks that may be causing a kitchen leak would be your connections where your supply lines are. That's where your hot and cold water pipes connect to your faucet. It's very rare that those are going to be leaking. So have a dry rag, dry these connections down, and then go back and just touch and feel and get a sense if there's any water that is actually seeping. Sometimes those slow leaks cause way more damage. So that's the other thing. The other thing to consider would be your air gap leaks when your dishwasher kicks on. And sometimes the air gap from above will leak down and cause some leakage down here. The next most common cause of kitchen sink leaks is going to be your water filtration system. As you can see, you've got a lot of water hose connections, and I've even seen these little plastic pipes that are pressurized have a little bit of a pinhole leak that causes major water destruction, and those are hard to find. So again, the best thing to do is just take your hand and touch all of the pipes to see if you're getting any type of moisture or leaking. All right, so out of all of those areas that potentially could be leaking under your kitchen sink, I'm back with Roger because he does a great job with identifying where the most common areas that cause leak. And that is going to be in these drain pipes right here.
Part, you should have a bubble washer in there to help seal it off. And as you can see right here, this is exactly what we have. Now, a lot of times, that washer may be what's wrong. If they've been in there too long, they can get brittle and crack. But you notice that the way the bevel goes down. When you slide your nut up the pipe, you want to make sure that that bevel.
All right, so if you notice how he slid the slip nut up and then the washer. Well, this leads me into what my dad taught me back in 1985, and it completely stopped all the callbacks from Mrs. Jones calling me going, hey, I still got a leak underneath my kitchen. And that is this secret right here. So all you're going to need is some plumber's putty and then get your slip nut. And what you're going to do is grab a little bit of putty, not much, but just about that much right there. You're going to take the slip nut, and basically what you're going to do is just a little bit apply it at the very bottom, just like that. You don't want to get it into the threads, just keep it at the very bottom. So it looks just like this. All right, so now you're ready to go ahead and slide the slip nut onto the tailpiece, and then do what Roger said. You want to make sure that the cone is facing down, and you slip that up like that. Now you're ready to go ahead and tighten this down. The good thing about the putty is that you can almost hand tighten it, and when you do, you can start to see the putty leach out of the joint, and that's a good thing. See, look at that. I don't know if you can see it, but it's starting to come out around the nut. Now, the reason why that's important, remember that garbage disposal vibrating, it's not going to vibrate these loose, and it's going to seal and compress in all of those gaps. And if you want some protection for the bottom of your cabinets from getting water damaged in the future, my next video explains a very easy process to waterproof that so you save your cabinets.